Hey everyone, welcome to yet another podcast brought to you by Humans of Galgotias. At HOG, we believe every story matters. I'm Shrishti Singh and joining us today is Mr. Azim Uddin Sir. From winning the Chancellor's Trophy for the best student in Galgotias University to publishing multiple research papers, he has been pushing boundaries. He is an IT professional, a TEDx speaker. And guess what? He's also a proud alumnus of Galgotias University. Azim sir, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
How has your experience been in Galgotias University? We would love to know the difference you noticed from the last time.
It has been great, I think, in terms of impact inculcation and knowledge sharing, wisdom acquisition. Like in those times also, I have been a part of a variety of public speaking engagements, managing curriculum at the same time. And it has been such a trailblazing experience managing both, our own academic experiences and these extraordinary experiences. I think that also created that kind of creative spark in my own self at that time, because back to back, then only I just, got into those literary experiences, and all those 3 books are published back to back in 2020 itself. So it has been really great. I feel a kind of nostalgia, again coming back, and if we can feel a variety of experiences, different in terms of infrastructure, in terms of all students as well, in terms of like I just saw the incubation center, iOS development center. After so many years coming back here, last year also I was here, but I couldn't find a chance to look up to and having a proper tour. But yes, like these kind of emerging technologies, they are providing out these kind of experiences in terms of technical competencies, in terms of our extracurriculars as well. And I think that they're just providing us that basic platform to showcase those skills. So I'm just loving, I have all those memories in my own memory lane. I revisit those, and whenever I am back here for any kind of guest lectures and all, I just revitalize my own senses. And today, like, it has been such a great, guest lecture on digital transformation and operational leadership.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You've been on both sides, first as a student and now as a guest speaker. How different does it feel?
It is different, I would say. It is like even I am filled with mixed emotions. As a student, we are more into those academic experiences. We have to manage n number of things at that time. We are new to that particular system. As a university student, it becomes sometimes very hard or difficult managing all those things, and I think that's a great learning experience as well. We learn a lot, and as a student, I think that's a key lesson that we have to take, that we have to be becoming just like a student every now and then in our entire lifetime. So there also, like, it was a mixology in terms of experiences, in terms of extracurriculars, in terms of winning out all those academic rules and regulations as well. And now as a guest speaker, like, I have been here multitude of times now. After passing out, I'm a 2020 pass out, and it feels so great again, because that new energy we feel. It's again a case of all those vibrations and good feelings, because from where we are just pass out, it always lies there in our head, and all those memories are there. So whenever we are again back with all those things, I think we have n number of key lessons to give to the generic students, to give to the public, and it motivates us, it recharges us, it encourages us for the greater good of all those students, wherein we can share those kind of valid lessons to them. So as a student, as a doing certain kind of guest lectures or indulging in public speaking engagements, I feel the basic difference is just about impact building, like impact creation and co-creation, making them aware about what is required as a term of industry expertise, what organizations want us, what they expect us from these students. I feel that's the most lovable part that I love when I'm just having these kind of alumni interactions.
Okay, sir. Any fond memories from your college days that still stick with you?
Yes, of course. Like after passing out, I had a proper meetup with Dhruv sir and Sunil sir as well. So I think I presented my books to them, and it was such a lovable spirit. They were quite welcoming. I just cherished that part from my own side. I just presented my own 3 books to them, and we just had a proper chit chat with them. It was again for a guest lecture that time, but it was a technical topic, but then we just had a proper chit chat and proper communication, cherishing all those memories. So I would say that would be the most cherishable moment of my life.
You're a project manager. What is your role in a daily life?
For project managers or being an operational leaders, I feel it's all about leadership, it's about innovation, it's about carrying out all those everyday rituals, everyday operations, streamlining those operations, how the delivery is going to be happening, how our everyday options are affecting the delivery, product development, project management. It's all about that. It's not easy peasy, I believe, because every now and then we have to learn from our own experiences. Sometimes it becomes hard because it's about human-centric approaches. It's about like you have to indulge in deep communications, you have client meetings to handle, you need to be having that industry expertise. So, and with these kind of technological advancements, every time, every day something new is coming out. So I feel not facing all those roadblocks, all those limitations, and we have to be so adaptable and change-oriented in nature. Even that is the key lesson that I also shared today, that be open, be effort-driven, not just result-driven to all those students. Because now technology is changing, we are facing these kind of digital transformation and operational excellence. So operations are like, it's about all those 3 P's of life: process, product, and people. Okay. So we have to go with all these 3. And quality, productivity, and inventory. I think this is what operations are all about.
Yes, sir. You have published multiple research papers. What got you into this?
Yes, so it was the time of as a student here as well, like we were promoted, we were encouraged, educated to write research papers. So it was the time of our 3rd year or 4th year of BTech, because that is the time when companies come in and we have to be having these kind of extraordinary embellishments to share, like research papers or capstone projects, mini projects. Only these are the game changers wherein we distinguish ourselves from other individuals, right? Trainings done, seminars attended, all these. So I just got into this because I have done my BTech in computer science and engineering. So in software engineering, I have written multitude of research papers in software engineering, testing, maintenance part, and then some research papers are on life scenarios. So firstly, it was about technical writing, and then I got into this creative writing. But one aspect that I just particularly love about research, that it's about a kind of homework that you have to do as a whole. Because now we have to make other people learn what is new in the market, what type of research they need to do. There is this kind of feasibility study goes along the way, because you have to be well prepared in advance to write something, to publish it, and even I have presented those into IEEE conferences as well. So it's just like I'm just loving the lasting impact of that, and as a whole, like we are just using it whenever we are writing books, writing something, articles, anything.
What advice would you give to young students who want to publish their first research work?
Yes, for them, for all those aspiring researchers, research scholars, one thing that totally matters in this research domain is just like your authenticity. Your authenticity matters. One subject area, one technological domain, any domain you could take up, but entire research, entire feasibility study, operational feasibility, you have to having a proper deeper dive into all those topics, whatever you are writing. Because it's not just writing for, for the campus to corporate kind of thing, but it's about you have to be living that topic with your own self. It is very deep rooted. So we need this homework, we need this groundwork, we need some type of experiential learning. We have to be backing our research papers with type of case studies, newsletters, ebooks. So, references. So there's a proper format of research papers. I think for all those enthusiasts who want to scale up into this research domain, 1 or 2 type of life hacks that I would just like to give them is do a proper research and then be authentic. Don't just, copy others. Don't just copy other people's ideas, but it's about your own newness and openness.
Okay. What are the key qualities that should be in a student so that they are a great project manager?
Yes, so as a student, I think it all starts whenever we are at any educational institution. We have to be always open and transparent when it comes to learning pedagogies. As a student, it is quite new whenever we pass out colleges, we pass out from schools. I think one thing that can tremendously have a very trailblazing experience in student life is that we have to be listening, watching our own elders, our faculty members, our teachers. That sincerity and obedience, if these 2 tactics are there, I think they can uplift them, they can empower them, they can feel them educated, because that is when you have proper courage and proper fortitude, proper trust in your teachers, in your faculties, in your elders, in your deans, entire leadership, entire management teams. I think that is when you recharge yourself and you see that yes, someone is above us. us to handle all those things. So if this is there, this is just like a life trait. It happens with our parents as well. So as a student, following out that work-life harmony, following out academic experiences and curriculum, it becomes so important that they have to be quite respectful, quite diligent in terms of the approaches that these teaching staff members handle. Following out blindlessly, and then, reach out for that kind of active learning, that even I felt so empowered seeing the kind of incubation centers, IOS centers here, because now they are not promoting all those conventional methods of teaching. Now they are giving hands-on experiences to people. They are providing them with incubation centers, they are giving them the learning that yes, now this is a proper ecosystem. They can engage with the mentors, they can have a proper ecosystem, they can have a proper resource set that how they can deliver, how they can come up with that entrepreneurship mindset. So I think that is the need of the hour these days with technological advancements, irrespective of just the curriculum and rote learning. I feel this is the kind of transformation that would be happening in the future run as well. So this tactic, and one tactic I would just like to share is be experiential learning oriented, like not just following out that rote learning parameters or just working out for marks, for grades, but it's about experiential learning. Whatever experiences you are going through, you have to be meaning through those. You have to be getting that innate meaning. And creativity, innovation, leadership, management, like we discussed operational excellence today. And with digital transformation in operational excellence, how digital transformation can help us, in terms of leadership, in terms of management and operations. So with all those digital tools, they would be always there. They can be flourishing in the coming time, but this human-centric goals, this human-centric tendency, there is no alternative for that. And that is only possible when students would be in those extracurricular activities, when they would be making the most out of all those activities other than just their own curriculums or academic thing. So if they are doing that, they would be building out that work-life harmony. They would be doing something that would be other than just work, only just for getting a job. Campus to corporate, they have dilemmas, they are quite confused at this time. But then these would be the things, whatever new, whatever different you have done, I think that is just like icing on the cake. That makes it differentiating with other individuals.
You have received multiple awards like Dhruv Ratan Award or Indian Icon Award. Which one is your favorite?
My favorite is, I would say, Dhruv Ratan Award, because in my starting days, I just got it. It is so closer to my heart. And it was just for these kind of writing practices, for my books. So Dhruv Ratan Awardee, even it is so close. It is just like always empowering. Always it is giving me mixed emotions. It takes me back to all those times wherein this journey has been started. And again, with multiple public speaking engagements, wherever I go, I'm a TEDx speaker as well. So variety of speaking engagements happen with impact, inculcation, creativity, innovation. But I feel the one that just empowers me even today, and it just takes me back to that memory lane, it is quite closure, this Dhruv Ratan Award. Because in the starting time, when we get certain awards, they totally recharge us and we feel ultra pumped up. We are so pushed up on, like it is always there with our own inner motivation. It is not like only we have to be dependent on these awards to recharge us, but yes, it's just like a 50-50 balance. So external motivation and inspired execution. I just feel that these two things are required.
You've also won the Chancellor's Trophy Award over here. What do you think contributed the most to that achievement?
Yes, so Chancellor's Trophy, again, I have to say the Chancellor's Trophy was even the earliest part that I got from here. After that, that kind of Dhruv Ratan Award. So it was at a scale of being graduated from here, one of the premium universities of India, Galgotias University. On a variety of parameters, it just helped me to shape my skill set and mindset that I am today. My own personal engagements, my own personal give and take processes. Every time, whenever I am showcasing up, whenever I am doing this kind of self-exploration, especially research writing, book writing processes, and the kind of exposure that I get, Philip classes most importantly, because students even underestimate the power of Philip classes. It's just very game-changing. Like you are here and faculties and teachers are on the dead side. So it just like we have to be believing in the powerfulness of right words. And whenever we are there to become more enterprising, whenever we are having this kind of diligence, due diligence to come up and to share something new, I think that helps us as a as a good human citizen as well, we need to be aware about all those social skills as well. So that, I think, the impact inculcation I get from here and the good kind of exposure. And Chancellor's Trophy, of course, it has been such a delightful experience of mine. It was again the newest kind of academic, most for the overall academic experience award, like for all those 4 years. And not only just for these academics, but for the extracurriculars as well. Like research is there, writing is there, participating in n number of contests that happen here. So as an active member, I just felt the great advantages or merits of being here. And it was for wholesome development. And this message that I just want to give to all those students here as well, that be wholesome, indulge in a variety of other contests and activities as well. We have n number of clubs here. Now, like students are, I find here, people are quite enterprising. They're coming out with new thoughts, they are doing, following up. They're making the most out of all those resources that are provided here. Now they are more sincere, more diligent, more action-packed. So we need this action-oriented confidence in people. So it was really great. I have a great memory with my brother. I just came here to catch the Chancellor's Trophy. It was again a meetup with Sunil sir at that time. So that was the first meetup. And after that, I just presented those books. It was the second meetup. And I still look up to staying connected with for all these alumni interactions. Even today also, Dean sir enumerated that we can do chapters or any type of more technical competency spaces wherein we can motivate students. So I think that is a need of the hour, to inculcate all those life skills in them, not only just academics or academic excellence, but it's about a variety of affairs. And whenever they started this initiative of Chancellor's Trophy, I think that's a great deal to motivate students, to inspire them to do their own best, not only just in this curriculum, but as a whole. Because when we incentivize these kind of opportunities, when we give certain incentives or any type of favors to students, they become more recharged to practice them and to make the most out of all those opportunities that they get. So as an organizational level, as an institutional level, that is something that these people can do. In changes in their teaching pedagogies, how the hands-on experiences they are giving experiential learning, they are providing good scale platforms to showcase. So I feel so lucky.
You've also given multiple TED Talks and speeches. Which one is your favorite and most memorable to you?
Yes, so my favorite would be a very recent one that I just gave a talk, and it was not just a keynote address, but it was a panel discussion at IIT Roorkee.
Oh.
So, of course, as the name suggests, it was quite like a new experience for me. I was even very much enchanted. I just got captivated when I just got this particular offer. Quite excited. I was quite nervous as well. I was just having mixed emotions that how to cope up. So that was a panel discussion on reading, writing, and legacy life, and how to live an enlightened living. We were having n number of other authors, other readers who joined me as a part of a panel discussion. And at an IIT, when it happens, it is just like a big thing, not just for the namesake, but then yes, we feel that kind of differentiating factor. So our experiences add up to that, and even just going to an IIT for the first time, it was great. And all those people, they were from the different parts of India. So we just had those delegate meets, we just have those casual chit chats that happened, and it is always so great. I just love the basic aspect about these kind of public speaking is like community camaraderie you get. You tend to face n number of individuals who are also like-minded as you are, who are also in all those creative endeavors, all those rendezvous achievements, and that is when we take certain kind of inspiration, inspired execution. Yes.
What advice would you want to give to students if they want to make a global impact in their respective field?
Yes, I think that's a really great take. Really a take that can not only value themselves, but this take can value as a global impact inculcation and legacy life. Even I am the harbinger of peaceful living and legacy life. Like I just love to create videos on real life topics, skills that are required for the real world. right? Like everyday hustle, everyday life, how we have to be living an enlightened living, being so aware, not just living subconsciously. I just love this kind of a space. Now, like 5 to 6 years, I'm into this space of life coaching, creating content on these kind of life hacks, mini life hacks, and that too very easily digestible. It's not like we have to give other people set a kind of information overload. We don't need to overwhelm them with more information because data is everywhere. Everywhere there is information. But it's the case is feeling versus information. How you tend to make the other person feel good. Feel good content is on the rise because information is everywhere, the technical competency, resources are everywhere. And I think with digital transformation, with the advent of AI, all those tools that we have, this is the only thing that can't be changed. Emotion affecting storytelling. It can't be changed because we are all are spiritual beings. We are mental prosperity seekers, right? We want peace, humanity. So these kind of human connections, these kind of physical extravaganzas, there is no alternative for those because we have to be believing in the impactfulness of right words, you know, be it written communication, be it spoken communication, so it just helps us.
Many students hesitate to come out of their comfort zone. What's the boldest decision that you took in the university?
Yes, you very accurately put in that people don't want to come out from their own comfort zone. People, especially students, they just want to stabilize their own life. They become quite, some students, they just become quite open whatever they are getting offered, right? They just become quite satisfied in that. But I feel whenever you step out of your own comfort zone, it helps you gain that legacy. It helps you gain some kind of extraordinary factor that can showcase you, that can express you more better in the upcoming opportunities. And those opportunities at that time we don't know, right? Suppose like I gave this guest lecture today. Now any of my sentence, any of my word, any of the inspiration that people can take and then it can bring devastating change in their own lives, right? So it is this power of transformative impact. So my decision that I took being here is to just indulge in these kind of engagements. Other than that academics, other than that everyday tests, everyday things that happen, academic excellence is again important. I think that's the basic bedrock. It creates you a better individual in terms of devotion, in terms of discipline, in terms of humanity, in terms of, because otherwise the students would not become so much, you know, in the moment, they would not be able to learn. So all those pedagogies, they are extremely important that are evaluating those students, but at the same time, they have to come out of their own comfort zone wherever they are feeling that this thing can help them. Scope and interest. These two things they have to value, and whatever niche, whatever area they just see that this can be, they are resonating with that area, they can do greater good for the society, for their own self in that area, they have to accept that, and then they have to seek out that yes, these are the opportunities, therein I can just showcase myself better. So stepping out of my own comfort zone, I just realized it at the very starting time itself that I just felt the need of invoking in these kind of gestures, kind gestures for kindful disposition, and just to make the most out of reading practice, writing practice. And because I was also an academically sound student at that time, or even from my schooling days. But now what we need with the changing time, what type of skill set we need, mindset we need to live a more great life, I think that is needful in the today's times, because this life is just a one-time offer.
Yes, sir. If you had to describe Galgotias in one word, what would it be and why?
I would say very stylish and extraordinary space to uplift people, more mentally and being in a physical space as well. It just helps us because whenever our surroundings are good, we tend to perform better.
Okay. Your books reflect a very deep thought process. You seem to be a very spiritually sound person. Are you a disciplined writer, or you write when inspiration strikes?
Yes, so I would say like as a whole on a day-to-day basis or on alternate days, I just follow this practice of journaling, like writing daily. So I would not perceive that everyone has to be an avid reader or a writer or an aspiring writer, but it helps in any area. Even it's scientifically proven that whenever we write something, it revitalizes our senses and it helps us to memorize that thing better. right? So I just like personally, I just follow this practice of Resimis, that is ritual of 60 minutes solitude. So 30 minutes or 60 minutes, I just find out daily to just enjoy my own self-company, accept who I am, to focus on the key areas for the upcoming near or far future as well. And I just write. I just take inspiration from art, from nature, whenever I'm traveling, anything. Like I'm open to all those challenges, all those key lessons that we can take from our external world. And I think as an author, as a writer, it truly helps, because you are just making all those external things to the public, to the readers, and when you mean them, there is something that authenticity comes out. So I just have a very disciplined process of writing, and I would not say it is toxic positivity, because every day we can't write, so we have to be open. So every alternate day or whenever we can write, but we have to be mentally present in that particular space. So I just focus more on terminologies, I just write them, I just memorize them, and then we have a proper scale-up process for that. But firstly, people should take inspiration from where they could take them, and then they have to take those physical notes or mental notes, otherwise they forget it the next second. So that happens.
Okay, sir. So, do you think journaling should be done on a regular basis? It has to be very on the point, or you can do it whenever you need it? The perfectionists don't do it, they don't touch it. What do you want to say on that?
Yes, I think this is a proper misconception about this also, but as a human, like we all have emotions, right? We all are just made with these kind of micro habits, mini habits, all those lifestyle hacks that we have to make the most out of from our everyday hustle, our everyday life. So for new beginners, for newbies, I would say yes, for them it's hard, but there are these supportive areas that can help them, like writing diary entries, writing out, maintaining their own gratitude journals. That can help them, because in them, you're not writing paragraphs, you're not writing n number of articles, but it's like you're writing what you feel. So it's just like your emotional reflection, your psychological healing is getting transferred from inside out. So I think if they will start in this manner, they would feel great, and then they would be in those writing. I just take writing as a therapeutic exercise. It's healing for us at this stage. But yes, for new beginners, for readers, for writers, they have to do that with less intensity. Like if they want less, then less is more. Yes.
The IT industry is rapidly increasing. What are the in-demand things that the students need to inculcate, the skills that they need to focus on to secure their future?
Yes, this digital transformation with this and this operational excellence and number of advancements are taking place in our life and in the current time as well, and in the upcoming time, these are the things that would be only flourished, right? Because of innovation, because of good research, because of storytelling, people are just coming out, they are developing things for our own rescue. It's just like for our own ease and convenience, we are having n number of tools. But then there are, we have to go with our scope and interest. Like whatever digital tools we have to use, first is your interest and then scope of that matter. Like there are n number of tools that are hotcakes these days, they are very trendy. People have to use and take up these resources or these tools whenever they find that yes, this is relevant to them. So I would say the groundwork you need to do, that yes, if this is relevant to you, this tool you think this would be extremely helpful to you, then you take that and then learn that. And then as a whole, don't just take it like, relevance has to be there. Sometimes it happens we just do it because the entire crowd is doing that. Because in the future, we don't know what would be in trend. So according to your niche, according to your own personal interest and whatever is prevalent in the market that can help you to self-express yourself better and to make you in a good position, just accept that. And it's hard because of change, because we are resistant to change. So even today also in the guest lecture, I said that we have to be change oriented. Change orientation and risk-taking ability, that has to be there. So with all those tools, I would say all those things that are, newly here in the market, they're just coming out, people are using them. They have to be just like an enabler. They are not replacements, they are just enablers. So we don't need to be just becoming the slave of those tools, but yes, 50-50 percentage, whatever, it's just like, if it is helping us, we have to use those resources, but not just, at 100% negative impact. So we can't have that negative influence or disruptive influence of any tool. So whatever I think the trend has to be there, your interest has to be there with those particular tools whatever you are adding. And don't just add just for the sake of adding that. Students, they just add in their own resumes just for the sake of adding it. But then they have to be truly having a deep-rooted dive into those, whatever research, whatever projects, whatever tools they are good into. So time is changing, but we also need to change.
So we have been listening on multiple news channels that AI can replace engineers. What is your say on that?
Well, my take, it is quite the ongoing controversial question of all times. Different data analysts, different tech-savvy professionals, they are giving their own opinions on this. But I think it's a matter of personal choice. It's a matter of our own sake of convenience. And whenever people or these kind of things, they are just getting developed, they are getting developed for our own sake of convenience, right? There is this problem statement that they are solving. But then, as I said, it would be just like when personally we would be taking them as an enabler, as enablers, that they are there to craft our experiences more better so that we can do that smart work. We can do more work in less time. I think if we make the most out of that in this fashion, that is when we would not becoming slaves of these kind of things. But as when they are there, then we have to use them as well, right? So usability, flexibility, scalability, that totally matters. But yes, they can't replace humans. They are replacing these kind of profiles or designations, but as a whole, because we all are emotional beings, we are spiritual seekers, we are human beings, we have emotions, we are just a bundle of emotions every now and then. So emotion affected storytelling. That's why whenever we are into this emotion affected storytelling, whenever all those kind of profiles and designations that want people to speak up, whenever there are, the kind of public speaking engagements, you have client meetings, communication skills, interpersonal skills, leadership, innovation, problem solving skills, analytical skills, whenever we would be making the most out of these, then for those profiles wherein these skills are needed, it can't replace, right? So I would say human-centric roles, wherever human sentiments and human tendencies are used, those profiles and designations can't be replaced. That's my view. And I think, yes, it has to be just like a 50-50 balance. We have to use them as well, but for a greater good, to ease up our life, to just do less, more work in less time, and maintain a good harmonious balance.
So, Azim sir, when a bad day strikes, when you're not feeling well, who is your go-to person, your human interface?
Even just an exact human, she is my mother. I just look up to her. She is also a writing enthusiast. But as this motherly love always prevails, it is so universal, it is so generic, right? But I would feel like this written words, this tendency, this I also got from my mother as a heredity factor. But then how she supports me in not only just doing all those motherly benefits, mother is known for her unconditional love, unconditional love, support, that genuine guidance, she is just the 24/7 caretaker, always giving you that emotional support. We need that. But then there are days when you lose hope, when you need more courage, when you are quite turbulent, when you face those turbulent waters, you face friction. That is when you need someone to heal you up. You need someone. And whenever we are having this motherly bond, strong motherly bond, motherly bond everyone has, but then strong motherly bond that is irrespective of circumstances, irrespective of that unconditional love, but on a variety of parameters, on a variety of scale, when you can get inspiration from her. I feel that has been the case for my own life. So in terms of any type of venture, she just, even yesterday I just updated her about this kind of guest lecture. She again congratulated me and everything. She's always the, giver of the good energy, divine energy. So whenever I need something, whenever I want a proper guidance in, I just look up to her. So it's just like following out, it becomes so hard, because our parents, our mothers, they are having this kind of beauty of sacrifice, right? They should be the first person to sacrifice their own amendments, their own changes, chances, everything. They would just do that compromise. So we also need to show up and to scale up to their own expectations, I feel. So it is so required, and I feel so lucky to have her in my life. Every now and then, whenever it's about those catastrophic waters, those catastrophes, dangerous sequences, she is up to the rescue. So a total healer, I would say.
Mothers are also humans. What can we do for them?
Yes, of course, we have to be. It's just like an art of reciprocation, you know. So that's the way that what we can contribute to make them feel happy. I think that is the need of the hour, and that we have to be doing, because now the life has changed. It has become so fast-tracked life. We have become so self-consumed. Even now, there are times whenever we become so busy. You know, sometimes call comes up, and then some people, they just neglect it. You know, and we just give the lame excuse of being busy. Yes, we are having overpacked schedules. We tend to, but family has no other alternative. You know, that is the universal lesson of this lifetime. So I would just say that in whatever ways, in whatever those generalized and qualitative ways we can contribute to their happiness, that is now our own duty. It is our, even not that, it's just like the dutiful service that you provide to them. What are the many things that you can do to uplift them, to empower them? Because their time, sometimes it's just like midlife crisis happens, midlife meltdown happens. So now this is the time, and even through this podcast, I would just lovingly share that students or young professionals, they have to learn this, that how to make their elders feel alive, how they have to be, you know, looking up to them, and quality time, even my first book, this Deep Realization, this is on parent-child bonding, that parents should spend quality time with their children. Not only they should just give those resources to them. So quality time, having a proper enjoyable bond, very open, very frank, wherein people can share, students can share anything that they have in their own mind, that is the need of the hour these days. So in whatever ways we can contribute, we have to be making them feel good.
If you were to describe yourself in a few words, what would they be?
I would say disciplined, consistent, and passionate about my legacy life, because I just take life as a wholesome scenario. That is where we have to learn every other day. With every other thing, we have to learn something new. And it's about, I always been into this thing of legacy life, that what new, what different we can do, and for the societal development, what we could do. I think that is something that just, you know, it's just like my USP.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give to 18-year-old Azim?
Yes, that is a very realistic question, you know, because we go from n number of ages to n number of ages, but then we don't, you know, focus on the kind of experiences that we go through, and we are learning. Even from infanthood, from childhood, from as a student, as a job seeker, as a professional, IT professional, we all are learning something new. So at that time, I would just love to give this as a key lesson as well, that take a good care of your own self. That is again matters the most. You know, health is above wealth. So sometimes it happens that we become so workaholic in nature, we become extremely diligent, we become action-packed. That's our time to have this grit and grind, but at the same time, we can't compromise with our own health, right? So sometimes, like, I was quite in the moment, and I was making severe compromises with self-care, soul care, not getting enough time for my own self, you know, that now I am quite aware of. Like now, it's a very good balance. At that time also, it was a balance, but I think this is the key takeaway that we can take, and the very shareable message we can give to young aspiring solopreneurs, students, IT professionals, that for every phase in their life, we are just going through a number of phases. So phases changes, and this life is just a one-time thing. You know, we all have expiry dates. So you have to give justification to each and every phase of your life. So just take that and live consciously.
Lastly, a fun one. If your life was a movie, what would the title be?
Title would be Discipline. Because as a whole, how I perceive my persona, it's all about being more perseverant, more diligent, more disciplined, more consistent in my own actions. So even, you know, if it would not be a fiction, or if it can be a fiction, discipline. And I think that's it's very generic message, you know, to lead a life, well-balanced life in the coming time. That if you are disciplined, you can crack anything. If you are disciplined, if you have the courage to look up to and to showcase yourself better, or to just show up for showing up. Wherever you have to show up, you are showing up without fear, with good courage, you know, so discipline, I would say. And even this is my 4th book that would be coming out as well, luckily. So this year it will be published hopefully by November or December, fingers crossed. So that would be a non-fiction now. I have written 3 fictional books, so it would be this time non-fiction. It would be about this self-care, soul care, inspiration, motivation, how to live a more fulfilling life, what mini messages we have to take. So on every page there would be one topic, and an explanation of that particular topic, because people are running out of time. They don't have enough time to write, because non-fictions are trendiest these days, because people want to read in less time, they want to get messages. So people feel that in non-fictions or in self-help books, they can get variety of messages. So even, let's see what title I need to give it, but it's really a quick question.
So you have a really comforting energy. Thank you so much for the podcast. Your insightful comments means a lot to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really great.